And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests.
That I hope the family won't mind me sharing, but after Iryna's death, the embassy in Ukraine called and said, we'll help you bring her home. And her family said no. They said she loved America. We're going to bury her here. So I think we can give her an America to be proud of. As Mr. Barnacle said, something here is broken, and we're here to fix it. We're happy to take your questions.
All right, guys, so we got to follow up on our coverage of the mainstream liberal media reaction to the tragic story involving the Ukrainian refugee girl, Miss Iryna Zarutska, who had her life stolen from her by a black criminal on the Charlotte Light Rail, okay, who decided to stab her in the neck while she was on the train.
This is breaking news. The Justice Department is filing federal charges against Decarlos Brown Jr. That is, of course, the man seen on this video in the red hoodie before stabbing the Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska to death on that Charlotte transit train. Brown is being charged with one count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. In a statement, the Attorney General Pam Bondi has said, I have directed my attorneys to federally prosecute Decarlos Brown Jr., a repeat violent offender with a history of violent crime, for murder. We will be speaking, they will be seeking, Pam Bondi says, the maximum penalty for the unforgivable act of violence. He will never again see the light of day as a free man if convicted. Brown faces a maximum statutory sentence of life in prison or death. Just absolutely heartbreaking. As I mentioned earlier, you can't go anywhere right now on your computer without seeing this horrific video, unfortunately. And this young woman, as Caroline Leavitt said at the White House press briefing just a short time ago, her death was preventable. And so many of these cities have to take a look within at how they're addressing crime, and especially those with a rap sheet like he had. I mean, those 14 mugshots stand out over a decade of arrests. This man should have never been walking the streets.
Yeah, those mugshots say it all, don't they? And Sandra, you're not kidding. I mean, I was just scrolling on X 30 seconds ago. Yeah. My entire feed is that video right now, and people talking about it. It's going even more viral today, it feels like. And I've got the Fed stepping in, essentially saying, you know, we're going to charge this at the federal level. This guy's never going to see the light of day again, as they continue to torch local policies in Democrat-run cities. They apparently don't want a local judge to have control of this case, so they're going to handle it federally.
Now, a lot of people have been talking about possible motives behind this. At least initially, it seemed as if this was some act of violence that happened due to this individual having some issues. However, we're getting footage to suggest that maybe, just maybe, there's more going on to exactly why she was targeted. Why did this lunatic choose to randomly attack this woman? Now, it seems as if, based off the new footage that has been released, that this could have been racially motivated. That this individual could have targeted this girl because she was white. Because after the stabbing, after this lunatic finished stabbing her in the neck, he was caught on camera saying, I got that white girl. I got that white girl, as he was walking away from the scene. Take a look. Yeah, so again, there are real questions about whether or not this was racially motivated, okay? And I want to react to the CNN panel who got triggered by this idea that a black man killing a white woman could have been a racially motivated hate crime, right? This is what they're triggered by on CNN. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Voters, once they called attention to it.
So certain people have been looking for an opportunity to find a case like this, to make a point like this. I want to play, this is Charlie Kirk, why he says this hasn't gotten a lot of attention.
a white Ukrainian refugee was murdered just because she was white. Everybody knows that, obviously. If a random white person simply walked up to and stabbed a nice, law-abiding black person for no reason, it would be an apocalyptically huge national story used to impose national sweeping political changes on the whole country. Instead, Megan Basham, no one seems to care when a white woman gets stabbed to the death.
Wow. He said white a lot.
Well, we are talking about it here, so I guess
True.
I don't think that's fair. Look, being in the system, because I have represented people who are mentally ill, and here's the balance. The balance is taking away people's freedom versus evaluating their mental illness. And New York City, there are a lot of programs for people who are mentally ill, but they have to want to be there.
Yeah, and it's
about forcing them to be there.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard time knowing that you are mentally ill.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of these people, again, should be forced into these mental institutions, right, at this point, right? I don't actually care about how they feel. If you can't be a productive citizen within our society, it doesn't matter for what reason, then, yeah, you need to be walled off, right? You need to be in some other corner away from society, right? It doesn't matter because, again, you can't operate, you can't function with everybody else. And everybody else should not have to suffer because of empathy, right? Because we want to allow people who, for whatever reason, okay, whether it be, again, mental illness or, in this case, who knows, maybe racially motivated, probably both, to be honest with you. That's what I'm thinking at this point, right? So, again, you have these people who are prone to committing these acts of violence. We know that this person was prone to doing it because of the fact that this person went to jail for violence, okay? Also, this person has been accused of beating on family members. This person's mom kicked him out of the house, presumably because he's too violent, right? So we knew this, but a judge decided to let this person continue to walk free, knowing that he was mentally ill, right? And that is the problem. The problem is that, again, we have too much empathy and we don't use enough common sense to protect the 99%, right? We're too busy trying to make sure we don't hurt the feelings of the 1%, the people who, again, can't function within our society, that we put the rest of society, law-abiding citizens, at risk because of those people, and it doesn't make sense.
But also, I mean, people like Charlie Kirk, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of like reciprocal George Floyd situation. And that's the part that I think he's almost giving away the game. And it's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
You know, let me just say a couple of things. One is, I mean, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad is going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. So I think that's an important thing to point out.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know if Van Jones actually saw that part of the video where this guy is saying, I got that white girl. I don't know. But to say there's no evidence that this was racially motivated, it's just false, right? It's false, right? That video in and of itself proves that there was a racial motivation behind it, at the very least. Now, again, what triggered him, okay, to stab her in the neck? Was it simply because of her race? That's it? He just wanted to kill a white girl? I don't know. Maybe, right? Or maybe he was just a crazy person and her race had something to do with it. It was a factor. Regardless, what I do know is that if the roles were reversed, if a white man had stabbed a black woman in the neck in what appeared to be a random act of violence on a public transportation, and then there was footage that came out of the white man walking around saying, I got that black girl, or better yet, I got that N-word. You know, in the case of this individual who said, I got that white girl, I mean, to me, that almost seemed like a racial slur, right? Let's be real, the way he used it, right? Because he clearly used it in a derogatory way. So if you had a situation where a white man stabs a black woman in the neck and then turns around and says, I got that black girl, first and foremost, that would be acknowledged by the media, right? That clip has not been acknowledged by the media, but they wouldn't even need that to say that it was racially motivated. They would say, oh, well, this is what black women have to deal with, right? Being a black person, every day you got to wake up and worry about your life being taken away by some white person, right? You got to worry about being killed because of racism. This is what they said. This is what they told us about black men being killed by white police officers, right? Even though, again, that is extremely rare in this country, statistically speaking, rare, right? Rare, okay? They put out the narrative that this is something that black people have to be worried about. Now that the tables have turned, okay, and you have a situation where a white woman is subject to this type of violence from a black person, now all of a sudden they don't want to have a race conversation. Now all of a sudden they want to forget about identity. Identity doesn't matter anymore, right? Ain't it similar to what we just saw with the Minneapolis Christian school shooting that was done by a transgender individual? How they didn't want to talk about the individual being trans. Oh, you're not supposed to talk about that. But before they knew that the individual was trans, when they knew that the individual was a white male, you had individuals like Rosie O'Donnell. The first thing she wanted to talk about, see, this is another white man, a white male Trump supporter committed another mass shooting, right? It's always them, okay? This is what they do when it fits the narrative. They have zero issues whatsoever talking about race, talking about identity, saying that this is a hate crime, is racist, regardless of whether or not there's actually evidence, okay, of racism or hate crime, right? In this situation, there's actually evidence. The guy is on the trade saying, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. All I know is that if the situation was reversed, if the roles were reversed, it would be undisputable that this was a hate crime, according to the media, right? So if we're going to hold everybody to the same standard, then we should be seeing some hate crime charges. If we're holding everybody to the same standard, right? If we know that that's what would happen if the roles were reversed, then in this situation, hate crime charges are warranted. But again, just notice how when the narrative doesn't fit, they don't like talking about identity. All of a sudden, identity goes out the window. They don't want to talk about race anymore. This is the race conversation they don't want to have, right? This is the only race conversation they don't want to have. Any other day of the week, any other story, they're ready to have the race conversation, right? They're ready to talk about it. And we already know there's going to be a situation where they will be willing to talk about it. It's going to happen, right? And all you will hear about is white supremacy, white nationalism, white man, right? But when it's a white victim, no. He said white a lot, right? Why is he bringing up the fact that she's white, right? What does it have to do with anything, according to CNN, right? But again, white supremacy, white nationalism, white male, oh, they're all over that, right? They're all over. They're totally founded. You would never hear anybody on CNN complaining about somebody using the word white too much when you're talking about a situation where the narrative fits. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
The other thing is, you mentioned the thing about cashless bail. I think this is a big challenge that we have. Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out? It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting.
Well, again, in an ideal situation, when you talk about having a bail, again, this guy has shown that he is a possible threat, right? And who knows, being mentally ill, he might not show up. He might not show up to court, right? Who knows what this guy might do? I think that bail is warranted, right? A cash bail is warranted, and I'm not talking about just $1,000. But again, the real issue here is that he had been diagnosed as a mentally ill person, and he had a history of violence, and nobody did anything about it until it was too late. That is the real problem here, okay?
Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons. And then for someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him. What people mention is the horror of what happened to this young woman.
Again, in any other situation, it's black, black, blackity black, right? You can't stop hearing the word black, okay? In any other situation where the narrative fits, you won't stop hearing about black this, black that, black victimhood, white supremacy, white nationalism, white man. That's what you'll hear all day. But when the narrative doesn't fit, all of a sudden, why are you talking about race? Why are you bringing up race? Even though, again, on video, the suspect is making it about race. He said it's about race. I got that white girl. Seems to me to be about race, right? That there's a racial component to this in regards to why he did this. So, again, it's just so funny how CNN, once again, refuses to acknowledge reality. And, again, this is just an example of how the media operates when a narrative doesn't fit. You see how they operate? Now, all of a sudden, they don't want to have a race conversation. Right? Crazy, right? CNN doesn't want to have a race conversation all of a sudden now. Right? Ain't it funny how that works? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.